Hi everyone, welcome back to Car Chat, and on this episode today, I have Raziz Rehan,
Hey
aka
guys, aka Mr.
aka
AMG, I guess, is
Mr. AMG.
what most people call me.
And how do you describe yourself? Not aesthetically, like
Not
what you do.
aesthetically, very brown. No, essentially, I'm an AMG addict, and I have been for many years before I started all the YouTube stuff. But back then, I had another job. Today, doing YouTube full time on my channel, Remove Before Race. A lot of fun on Instagram as well. But essentially, it's now full time reviewing cars, reviewing them very, very thoroughly, and in a very unique niche that I hope I can try to explain to you a little bit today. Why I think I should keep doing it, which I think a lot of YouTubers eventually hit a wall because we all seem to be doing the same thing. But I think on my channel we found a very unique thing that I want to fill you in a little bit about today.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wasn't always a YouTuber. So
what were you doing before you decided to take up YouTube?
So I had a number of jobs, as many people do, trying to make ends meet when we have this expensive vice that is cars, because I was always into cars. So when that monthly payment is coming, you got to make ends meet. So I used to work in an insolvency department of an accountancy firm.
Okay.
It was, in fact, my dad's firm, but I was running nothing to do with him, more the insolvency side. So really, it was a funeral director for companies, as I like to call it. It's a really depressing job. You deal with people who've bought, I don't know, like this sofa. It's not been delivered. The company directors have run off with the money, etc., etc. It's horrible.
That must be quite depressing,
It
actually.
was very depressing because you get all these poor people on the phone who've parted with their good money, and you're having to deal with kind of the shit afterwards.
Yeah.
But I was good at it. It brought in a good money, and I was able to kind of afford the cars that I liked. But it didn't really fulfill me. My other job then was designing. So I have a creative branding agency that I work with a partner on, and that was corporate design, logos and websites and, big charity commissions and this kind of thing. So I really enjoyed that because historically I was always creative. My mother was a great artist of her time in Pakistan. And I think I kind of got it from her. So when I was about 9-10 years old, I was coding and doing art for video games.
Okay.
But just like independent ones. So if you think of fighting games like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, we used to make games for the anime Dragon Ball Z, just fan games.
Okay.
And I do all the art and all the coding with like my team of guys around the world. And that was just when I was, early teens. So I had all this kind of knowledge and skill of Photoshop and, editing and coding and all this stuff, but I wasn't using it in my day-to-day job. So I kind of, that's where the basis of what I'm doing today came from, like the niche. But in terms of how then I transferred from being essentially an accountant into car things was thanks to Instagram in totality. Instagram is a really, really great platform for anything aesthetic. And cars are a great aesthetic, right? I mean, look at your 911,
They're like the
your
best.
old one. You can look at that and take 1,000 photos in one day, and you still wouldn't be, fulfilled. And I literally only started that just watching a few other accounts. Notably, I think one was Der Landgraf in Germany, who was a German blogger. Eventually started working for Mercedes. He would just catalogue his life with his car.
Okay.
But it wasn't like, oh, here's a car sitting outside Sloane Street. Not that kind of thing. This was more, oh, I'm changing the tyre of my car today. Or I'm doing an oil top-up but by myself. Or I bought this new bit of trim on my old S-Class and I'm about to change it.
So it's a bit more of a story.
It was very much a story. And I love that idea of cataloguing kind of your history with your vehicle. Because like a lot of people who loved cars back then, and I'm talking 5-6 years ago, we had like, I'm sure you did as well, Sam. You probably had loads and loads of folders and hard drives worth of car photos.
I had a Facebook album.
Yeah.
I had loads of photos.
Facebook album,
but a Facebook album that was just, and all my friends, I think it's got to the point where they're really quite fed up of it, but kind of secretly like it. That it's just any cool pictures of my cars go into one Facebook album.
Yeah.
I've sort of stopped doing it now because I kind of don't like Facebook.
Yeah.
And we've moved on
We've
to
all
kind
moved
of
on
onto
really,
Instagram.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen these accounts.
Yeah, and I just thought, look, I've been taking so many pics. I'm fed up of using iPhoto and other means of like cataloging my car journey. Why don't I just start cataloging it on Instagram?
Yeah.
If someone wants to see it and like it, they can. But it's really for my own benefit. I want a photo book that I decide what goes in it. Now, this was back in the days when we didn't have any DMs on Instagram, no stories, etc. It was all, very raw content. What you post is what you had. That was it. And I just started doing it and, gave a few opinions, very rarely now and then, but then started doing it more and more as you met people. And I think really meeting people ends up being the best part of Instagram.
100%.
I mean, the only reason I'm sitting here today with you is because we met, through Tim and then Joe and then whoever, which is great. And then I know so many people all over the world. It's all thanks to, that great platform. But just started doing it. People actually liked what I was saying or liked the particular view that I had. And invariably you start thinking as a car guy, God, is there any mileage in this? So I did try doing a few videos that I've never ever showed anyone. And I was shit because I kept trying to be Chris Harris, who I love.
Yeah.
And, everybody does that, subconsciously. They either try to be Harris or Henry Catchpole or Jeremy Clarkson.
For sure.
And it comes out, right? So I ditched the whole idea. I was like, no, I'll just stay on Instagram. I'll just enjoy myself. But eventually over time, pressure builds and people around you are like, oh, why don't you try it, etc. So then started doing YouTube. And to be fair, I was really just doing pretty much what everyone else was doing. Had a good Instagram following back then. It was about 80, 90,000, which was back in the boom period before all the algorithms came in and all that nonsense that we have to deal with now. But I started YouTube just doing what everyone was doing. Here's a car, walk around, pretty pictures, couple of opinions that are pretty much the same as everyone's. Very unfulfilling, just in the sense that they were good videos. Don't get me wrong, good camera work, the opinions were decent, etc. The cars were great, but really it hit home to me, and I mentioned this to a few people, when I just did my first ever press drive. Bilsterberg C63S facelift. Big deal for me. Being just a customer of AMG, but like doing the YouTube stuff. Yeah, I'm on a press drive, finally, going around a track. Did the video. It was a great video, really good info. We took some amazing tracking shots around the actual track itself, which no other journalist was doing on that particular drive. And released the video. It was slow. It was a slow burner. Didn't really get the views I wanted it to get. And I kind of had to take a step back. Now, like, who do you like watching, Sam?
My hands down favourite people are
can be
like
pros
Henry
as well.
and
Henry's
and
amazing,
Harris,
isn't he? And
just kind of the classic inspiring automotive writer, journalist people.
Agreed.
Not the less interesting. Some of them have not transitioned to video very well.
Yeah.
Obviously,
some are better at articles, some are better at video. Now, I asked myself the question that if Harris or Henry had come and done this video, would I have watched theirs or would I have watched mine? And the honest answer to me was, I would watch theirs.
Yeah.
And I said, that's a problem. Because if I'm not watching my own stuff because someone else in the world can do it better, then I should stop. But I didn't want to stop. So that's when I kind of reassessed things and said, look, what am I good at? Well, I used to be really, really good and passionate about doing design stuff. But so much about cars is to do with design.
Yeah.
So I started with a couple of videos. Now, the team I have, I don't like to use the word team because there isn't a team. I do all the editing myself. I do all the scripting, all the storyboarding, etc. I have one guy called Jamie Britton, who helps me shooting on press drives or here in the UK. So I sat down with him and we kind of decided to take a couple of cars and do things a little bit differently. And now today what I'm doing is when I do a walk around of a car and I say, oh, here we've got the brand new Aston DBX, for example. And the first three cars of the second generation were DB11, Vantage, and DBS.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying it, I'll show the cars in that position. And if I say it's a bonded aluminium platform, I'll show the bloody platform.
Yeah.
Or I talk about the Merc engine. I want to show the engine. I might even show the pistons firing. Because that's something that I'd like to see. And I think it's something that the audience likes to see because they hear it or read about things so much. But to actually see it and see it in situ when you're trying to appreciate why a new car is nths and tenths better than the old one, I think this particular format has got legs for me. And I enjoy watching it. I rewatch a lot of my stuff, quite sadly. But I do it because now I enjoy it. And I do it because I see the reaction in the comments from the audience that they are really enjoying this slightly different take. I'm a bit of a nerd as well, so we've chucked in a lot of kind of Marvel stuff, DC stuff, explosions, electricity. There's going to be some more Star Wars stuff coming up. But again, the audience has reacted well to that because everyone's into pop culture now.
Yeah.
It's not so much of a taboo as it used to be. So, yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey from kind of desk work to being, full time now in, I guess, almost entertainment. I don't know what else to call it. I shudder to use the word YouTuber rather, because there's so many different types of YouTuber now, isn't there?
For sure.
So, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
It's
really
good. I think when I sort of want to explain a little bit for those people that haven't come across your channel, the way you've just described it is exactly what you do. But I first came across your videos. It was when we were going with Tim to pick up his GTR, and you came along in your GTR, and we had a fun day hooning around.
Good day.
And then I started watching some of your videos, and it was the first time. Like, I'm quite a nerdy guy at heart. Like, I love techie details stuff, and there is definitely a market. Like you're saying, there's two types. There's many more than two types of videos, but you get the guys who are going out drifting it, telling you all about the dynamics and whatever.
Yep.
And to be honest, you need quite a big crew, or at least more than one person to do that well, because you need someone to film from outside the car and all that sort of stuff. And those guys are very good at that. But then there's also a completely separate avenue, which is detail-orientated videos for people that are interested in specifics of the car.
That's right.
And I know that's sort of why I think Tim's videos have done well for a long time.
Definitely.
He just does very factual bits of information about all the cars. And if you want a video about how to remove a roof from a 918 or something, Tim probably has a video on it.
Yeah. And a lot of people say that. You ask, just a random person, if you're going to look for a video of a brand new car that's just been announced, where do you go? Invariably, they'll probably say Shmi 150 because he'll have the first
videos.
video, and he's so good at soaking up and relaying information that it's quite reliable as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do have that type as well.
And then I started watching your videos, and recently I've been looking at, before I actually went and bought an Audi.
Yeah.
I was considering a bunch of Mercedes, and I came across a video, and it was probably maybe GLC 63.
Oh yeah.
And you were comparing it to was there a previous one?
Yes. Was it the black GLC? Because I've done 2 videos on GLC.
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. It was maybe comparing the 63 to the non-63. And the way
it might be
Raz's videos, you look at them, and he's in this sort of courtyard. I'm guessing that's where your house is.
Yeah, you've seen the black one. Yeah, that was where my house is. Yeah,
and he's standing next to this car.
Yeah,
and he's like, "This is the new blah 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 blah."
Yeah,
and actually, I did sort of wonder now. Do you do videos where there's never been a car?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
I have.
I was just thinking this thing and presumably you have a certain place you always put the camera.
I have some markings. That's only to help with should I ever want to show something from the past.
Yeah,
it just helps me editing time-wise.
Yeah. So you'll be talking about this car, and then you'll say, okay, so this car has, let's say, bigger arches, a bigger front grille, blah blah blah, and in your head you're going, okay, cool, right, whatever, and then he'll like click his fingers or something, and there will be the older model or the newer model, and you can. And then you flick between the two, so you can see right in front of your eyes the difference between these models. And it was the first time, and I don't think anyone else does that.
No,
not that I've come across before, that you could visually see all of these differences on all of these cars. And as someone who was looking at the different models as a prospective buyer, that was unbelievably useful.
I'm really glad, because that's the type of it's for the people who are looking for cars, but it's also I feel for people perhaps who can't quite reach those cars to kind of appreciate what's gone into them or what's changed. Like I'm doing at the moment a G800 Barabbas, or as I keep getting told in comments, it's Brabus, so I need to train my brain to say it properly. And with a tuned car, again, you're trying to explain why it's different. So what we've done on this one, and I'll love to show you when it's out this evening, we've removed the bumpers off a standard G-Wagon while it's there, so you kind of see the bumpers disappear, and you see the internals, kind of the air, the radiator grills and all the rest of it, and then we're slowly putting the other pieces on and the alloys and stuff, and it's quite fun to kind of do it that way and to really show, because sometimes you see something and you can't really appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah,
there might be just subtle differences, but when you immediately see it compared to an older version.
Yeah, if you can flick back between.
Yeah, it really helps. I did new 7 Series recently, and the grille is such a talking point for BMWs. And I went back and I found some of the first ever BMW saloons, which have these really long grills. This is like back in the days of like the SSK Mercedes and those kind of really old classic cars. But they had these huge grills from like top of the bonnet to the ground. And I said, hey, maybe they got inspiration from there. You know, so it's been great in a kind of history storytelling kind of way as well. But I'm glad to hear that even someone like yourself found it interesting. That's kind of where we're trying to get to, that people who really want the info, be it for entertainment purposes or for actual buying, you know, they just enjoy it, you know.
I don't necessarily want to give away all your trade secrets. What sort of software do you use generally for editing?
So for the video editing side, it's Premiere, After Effects. For the magic transitions or whatever you want to call it, is all Photoshop. So it's literally all Photoshop skills. So you asked whether I had a car or didn't have a car rather when I was reviewing it. If you check out my M135i video, now I actually went to Munich to film this car.
Yeah.
But it was in like a little camo studio that BMW had, and you know, the guys from Dry Tribe were there and a few other people, and you're kind of just getting the information. And I wanted time to script it and do it properly. So I said to them, look, I'm going to take my videos and my pictures here, and then I'm just going to do it at home. And they kind of gave me a puzzled look. I said, look, don't worry.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. So what I did was I put an A35 in the spot of the M135i on my driveway, and then it took a long time to get it right. And then, you know, when the sun changes and all these kind of things happen, you have to modify things. But then I had the M135i sitting on my driveway, and it really looked like it did. And what people loved about that, even though they knew it wasn't there, they could appreciate like reflections of trees on top of the car and just see it in place of where its rival has been, or whatever the case may be. I brought some older, like the M140 we brought down, a few other cars, and we got to, for the first time, show the exact differences in that spot. And even though the car wasn't there and the audience knew it wasn't there, they loved the fact that they could see this, and you know, they wouldn't have seen it anywhere else. So yeah, that was very interesting. It was daring, but we're gonna do more of that.
I rate that. And as someone who's spent a lot of time on Photoshop, I appreciate the amount of effort it goes into
it takes
trying
time,
to decently composite something in.
But rather than bigging myself up too much, overdoing it so much, I've gotten a lot quicker at it.
Process.
Yeah, it does help if I've actually got a car that I can take a picture of and then start the process. Sometimes the car just doesn't exist, or it's too old, or you'll never see it on the road. Yeah. And that's when you're trawling Google image search to get different angles and kind of all this stuff. But it's fine. I enjoy it. It's good.
And then the reason that 100% works, and whilst I was watching one of your videos earlier, I suddenly thought, hang on, is this even a video? Like, is this a video footage of this car, or is this a photo? Because unless you're looking really closely at some sort of moving reflections in the car or something, the camera is fixed.
It is, yeah.
So you could just take a picture and it would look exactly the same. Is there some stuff about having a picture that slotted into video that doesn't look quite right?
You have to be careful. Like, conditions have to be right, for example.
But let's say, rather than you just shot the video, and then whilst that video, you took a picture from exactly the same place, if you then just swapped out that single frame
but you can't do that. Yeah, because it just never looks right, because things are always changing, especially the environment where I film has got a lot of hedges and trees, so the wind's always blowing. There's always leaves flying around or something's happening. Just a photo just wouldn't do it. You need to kind of be as tight as you possibly can around the car. Plus, I'm moving around and waving my hands you know, not being entirely cooperative with the camera. So, I have to be very careful and make sure I take up as little of the screen as possible with the actual effect I'm doing. Yeah. Otherwise, you know, it could look very, very silly. But so far, so good. Touch wood.
Yeah, no, it's a really good way of looking at cars, and I hope you go and do many, 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 many more.
Lots are coming. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm glad you really like it, Sam.
How long does it take you to edit a video?
It's a good question. There's varying types of videos. We tend to do very simply like a first look, which ends up being invariably press drives more than anything, because you have very little time on press drives to do things, often very little time with the car that you want. So we end up doing a little teaser, say filmed abroad, which would be a first look. Something like that might take 2 days, of editing, I think, if it's got driving footage as well. Something a bit more extensive, like the full reviews that we do, would probably take, I'd say, about a week.
A week?
Yeah.
So editing time?
Yeah, probably about a week of editing time, I think.
Wow.
I try to save time as much as possible by building up a library of old effects in cars that I can reuse, or taking pictures of a car whenever I see it, etc. But yeah, to do it right, it does take time, and then you're always trying to improve yourself. Like that realization I had way back when, saying, well, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I have to keep asking myself that question and saying, well, what can I improve? What more can I bring to the table that I'm already doing now? So yeah, sometimes every video I'm almost trying to do something different to challenge myself, but to entertain whoever's watching it as well. So it ends up taking time. It does, but I do enjoy it because of that. Again, every time if it became mundane, you know what these programs are like, Sam, use them yourself. You can end up just hating yourself for it.
If you have to start doing, I imagine if you doing the same sort of effect by the time you've done the 20th, 50th video, like you start to be going, this is killing me now.
Yeah, and I think the audience would end up thinking that as well, that look, we've seen this 1,000 times. What new can you bring to the table? But I think for anyone who's in particularly the car video editing, don't take too long to do something, but make sure you do give it the love and the time that it deserves, Definitely.
Yeah, totally, like streamlining that process.
Yeah.
So I think back in the day, I used to do quite a lot of video editing, but it was of Tim and I used to do a lot of skiing together.
All right.
And we used to make ski videos.
Okay.
And Ben, his editor, you met Ben?
Yeah, of course, Benzine Ben.
Yes. We all lived in an apartment.
Yeah.
In the Alps for 6 months.
Oh,
doing some skiing. And that was where Ben, this was like the nerdiest apartment ever.
Yeah.
Ben brought a full-on desktop. I brought my laptop. Tim brought a laptop. I think we brought a TV.
Right.
So, which was Tim's screen.
Yeah.
But Ben first introduced me to Premiere Pro and After Effects. Yeah. And I sort of started then and started my edits because the footage wasn't necessarily that good.
Yeah.
We weren't that good.
What were you using?
So just a little handy cam or
stuff,
something.
All right.
It was way back when. I don't think GoPros existed then.
Oh, gosh. All right.
And to then later on, I started having GoPros and things like that. And the skiing got a little bit better. But my editing, I would try and make it jazzy. So I'd start doing things like having the intro to the video would be a calendar, for example.
Right.
That then moves in 3D space.
Gotcha.
And has writing that draws itself along the calendar and whatever. And then videos would be in the timeline and all that sort of stuff. And you just dive into this deep web of thing. But if you're doing something that you really like, I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the pushing myself and coming up with an idea.
Definitely.
And I think that's probably if people are trying to get into Photoshop, or like I always say, my dad occasionally edits a few photos and things on Photoshop, and the first thing I say is like try and come up with the concept, like think in your head of the concept of what you're trying to do, and then work back from there. And like as a vague idea, it's not, you don't want to be thinking I need to click this button to do this type of shape
around.
Or whatever.
You
want to go, I want to take this object, I want to cut it out, put it on the background, match the lighting, done. And that's how you get good at it, or better.
I mean, one of the best advertising campaigns that spurred me on to do something different on Photoshop was BMW's M-Town stuff. I thought it was so kind of inclusive to their customers, but a nice kind of one-up versus their competition, to have like the M-Town driving school with kids in there, and M-Town police, and drift happens, and I just thought it was absolutely brilliant. But then being the AMG guy, or the AMG addict on Instagram, it's like, well, I need to come up with a response to this somehow. So you think up different ideas then. Oh, wouldn't it be great if AMG had done this or that? So then I dived into Photoshop and I did a load of different, anti-M-Town propaganda, if you like. And that's a great way to start something. If you got something that you wish someone had done, or you got a concept in your head, then you use these programs to try and help you fulfill that concept rather than the other way around. And that's how you begin to then learn, how do I put a car there, or how do I mimic a shadow? And then you start kind of, understanding these things slowly. It all comes from a need when something doesn't exist.
And
I think
there's now a bazillion videos on YouTube on how to do a certain
Oh, it's so
thing.
good. YouTube is brilliant as a resource. The other day, I can't remember what I was watching. It was a YouTube channel. It's a cartoon one, actually. How it should have ended. They do all these films, how they
Okay.
should have ended, and they use cartoons to like.
That's quite fun.
Yeah, it's really quite funny. So like how Lord of the Rings should have ended, you know,
Yeah.
the common sense approach or something. But they always mimic like a movie intro. So they mimic the Marvel one with all the comic stuff flowing and then zooming out of the Marvel logo. And I was thinking to myself the other day, oh, wouldn't it be great if I started a remove before race video with that Marvel Studio style of flicking through different videos and zooming out, but instead of Marvel characters, it was just different videos of me, just as a joke. And then we'll do some Marvel theme thing.
Yeah.
So like you said, it comes out of this kind of need to, oh, let's try that and see if we can't get away with it type thing or achieve it. And YouTube is such a great resource because you find templates and every tutorial you could ever think of. You know, how do you save a file? It's probably on YouTube, you know, even though it's like file and save.
Yeah.
Right?
There will be.
But it's great. It's a great time to live in, I think, in that sense. Barriers to entry to learning things and putting stuff out into the world are so short now that really no one has any excuse to kind of sit on their asses anymore. All that really can judge you is the quality of your work. And at RBR, certainly, what we chase for is quality. The work has got to be of quality. If you start thinking about what's going to get you views, you know, by being viral, it works for some channels. It really does, you know, the whole viral aspect. But if you're trying to create a quality product, and this is in any industry, I think, you have to just chase for the quality, and then I think the success will follow. And then we're very, very lucky in the day and age that we live that there's so much support for whatever area you want to go into. I mean, could you imagine like revising for exams and stuff now compared to when we were kids? I haven't searched, but I'm sure there's like thousands of lessons on every single topic.
Everything
that you could ever. Not that any kid's ever going to use it. They're just going to go on YouTube and look at cat videos. But you know, it's there if you want to access it. So
it's an unbelievable resource.
It is,
and definitely, like you're saying, you've got to make videos that you want to watch, and you've got to do it to a standard that you enjoy. And that was something that I early on, and I think a lot of people struggle with. If you've come from that sort of designy, Photoshop-y editor type background, chances are you want to overproduce absolutely everything. Because your standards are so high. Even though I constantly, I think I've reined it back a little bit, but I used to get into some real like pixel editing type stuff then a picture then goes onto Instagram. Or a video that's only ever viewed on a phone. And you've shot the whole thing in 4K. And you're like, well,
this is what we were saying earlier. You have to give it the time it deserves, but you got to rein it back. I'm sure on every car transition I do, I could probably spend a couple of days per car, but I have to limit myself to that 10-15 minutes and just make it as good as it can be for 1080p on a big TV screen. Because you really can go OTT on these things and just, you know, spend weeks and months doing it, which is a big mistake.
And most people, 99% of people, and more than 99% of people are not going to notice the difference between you spending 15 minutes and 4 days. It's just absolutely not there. And obviously you have to pick the level that you're happy with. And I think the more content you create, that does slowly come down because one, you refine your process and you're like, well, this is pretty damn good. And if I go away for 10 minutes, come back and go,
still okay.
That's not bad.
For sure.
So you call yourself Mr. AMG.
Yes. Well, to be fair, it was first AMG who did it.
Oh, they did it?
They did it on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember whether it happened on Twitter and it happened in person with one of the bods in a Falterbach. And I just ran with it then. I said, right, you've said it. I'm just going to use it now because no one else is using it. And it's been great because whenever anyone's ever approached me, and I get recognized a lot now, which I love chatting to people and everyone. There hasn't been a single person who's been weird or, you know, dare I say nasty. Everyone's been amazing. And it's always Mr. AMG first. It's never Remove Before Race or RBR or Raz or Rockin' R or anything like that. So yeah, it's great, but that really only reflects my personal preference when it comes. We all have a personal preference when it comes to driving and buying cars. For me, it was AMG, but that again, that really just reflects my Instagram, even today, it's still more of a catalogue of my personal car journey with press bits thrown in there a little bit. But yeah, I love all cars as you do as well. And it's so great now to be in the position to try so many other things. But yeah, essentially I blame AMG for that, for that particular one.
That's fair enough. If they called you Mr. AMG, I like.
It's out there.
If Porsche called me Mr. Porsche, I would take that.
You got to take it.
So why Mercedes? Why do you have such a brand affinity to Mercedes?
I think it started early on. So my grandfather was a great lover of cars, but wasn't the most well-to-do man. He did get a factory order car one. I can't remember which one it was. My dad always tells me Opel Ascona or something, and he went to Germany to collect it. It was a big deal for him. But he always loved Mercs, so my dad was more successful than my grandfather, and in his later life, he'd buy him a new C or E class every year.
Yeah.
And my grandfather would love it, and he would go out, and he was famous for cleaning a car with one piece of tissue paper. He'd just go around like doing this. It's clearly not working, but he loved the car.
Yeah.
And I kind of saw that and appreciated it. Again, my dad always loved E classes and S classes and whatnot. So the natural kind of bias in the house was to go towards Merc. So my first few cars weren't Mercedes. I had a Skoda Fabia to begin with, and then I wanted a new 5 Series because they looked great, but I would have been disowned at that point. So I didn't really get my way there. So I used to drive Merc diesels, and I thought they were great. Torquey engines, really comfortable, nice design, etc. But the world of AMG didn't really come into it until I got my first one, which was almost a fluke because I wanted a Cayman S.
Yeah.
And I went to Porsche Centre Reading, had a great test drive in one, best car I'd ever driven at that point.
What generation was this?
This was
987.
Yeah, so the first
of the old shape.
First of the old shape. I still remember now. It was a black car with beige interior. It was just one of those things that you don't forget.
Yeah.
But I couldn't afford it. It was, for me then, being so young, I was 20 something, 21, 22. It was just too expensive.
Yeah.
Just could not do it. So I went for the alternative, read up some reviews. I think it was James May did a great review on the old SLK 55, and I read it, and he was like, well, this is the smallest AMG and the cheapest, but it's the best. And this was in the time before the C63 existed.
Yeah.
So found a used one, picked that up. First turn of the key, I was addicted. The V8 noise, the styling, the aggression, everything about it just pulled me in. And I've never really kind of looked back since that car. After that followed the first C63, the W204s that we all love so much, with the big 6.2 engine, and then the problem compounded more, and then the SLS came, and that was the same but even better. And yeah, it's just gotten worse and worse over time, really. Until we reach present day when everything seems to be going the other way around now, which is a shame. But yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky. We were just having a little bit of a conversation earlier, but we can totally visit that now.
I think we should.
Where
that needs to be visited.
Modern cars, and we can throw in Mercedes, throw in everything.
Everything, yeah.
It's just becoming less interesting to me personally.
I think
they're becoming less. Cars are less involving. I don't know. They're just different now.
They are.
Not in a good way.
Every discernible area. You drive an old car now; it feels analog, and you can't quite put your finger on what it is. But there's 1,000 different systems that are making you feel that way. Be it the suspension, or the infotainment system, or the electronic steering, or the driving aids, or the noise regulation, or the OPF, GPF boxes in the car, whatever it might be. Everything is dumbing down the love of driving. And it's a shame because some of those things are necessary. Some of them I don't think are as necessary. And I think cars have become the poster boy for, it's the big bad now. It's the soft target for the world to attack when it comes to pollution and emissions. Whereas we all know there are things that do much worse, and there are lengths that we can go to, and there's lengths that we don't need to go to. A lot of the cars I've driven recently, I'm going to pick out a few. To be honest, it's every new car. As you said, every new car is affected by this. For sports cars, it's all about the sound, and the sound has been affected the most. You look at, say, pre-OPF GT3 RS versus OPF GT3 RS.
Yeah.
It's like a different car altogether. You cannot recognize it. You go from AMG GTR to GTR Pro. Again, I shudder to say, I think my C63 is louder from the previous generation than a GTR Pro today, significantly.
Yeah.
In fact, my GT four-door, the GT63S, only a year older, is louder than the GTR Pro.
Really?
And
that,
it's all
that
these
was pre-OPF?
No, it's not. That's got an OPF.
That's got an OPF.
The GT four-door has always had an OPF. Where people get things wrong is the OPF, yes, it reduces sound quality a little bit and volume because it's sitting in between what we hear and the exhaust pipes. But the thing that's killing it is the noise regulations, which is a separate matter altogether. It's how many decibels you can have.
Has that come down? I wasn't aware that
it's
that
coming
changed.
down all the time. I think every 6 months it changes.
Really?
Every 6 months. So, you look at early OPF cars versus today's OPF cars. There's a difference there because the noise regulations are constantly changing. A good example for you, Sam, is, or anyone out there, A35 current one. It's got an OPF. It's got no performance exhaust system as such, but it gives nice pops and bangs when you're playing the engine. You compare that to the A45S, which you would expect next level.
Yeah.
It's about half the volume of an A35.
Really?
And you're thinking, wait, they've both got an OPF. They've both got similar exhaust systems. What's going on here? And you speak to the manufacturers, and it's all noise regulations. That's what's killing it. So it's not just emissions. I'm all for the OPF and emissions and cutting down on car emissions, etc. That's fine. We have to do our part for the environment. But noise regulation, is it that important?
Yeah.
Really?
Because most of the problems, I think, with loud cars is people aftermarket exhausts.
Yeah.
It's not factory levels.
No.
And I remember it was probably a Top Gear episode quite a long time ago, maybe.
It's the one with the speed gun that they were doing.
And they were basically comparing the noise.
Yeah.
It might have been Fifth Gear. Sort of sounds like something Fifth Gear would have done. The noise of a bunch of current cars, and I'm just going to pick whatever might have been out at the time. Maybe a Porsche, like a GT3, an R8, and then a 458.
Yeah.
And in theory, all of these cars had to be under a similar noise level. But the Italian ones, the Ferrari was like ridiculously loud, and they're like, yeah, well, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you feel the same. When I had, on my GT3, I had to have the warranty renewed, and for some reason I let it expire. That's a whole different story. That was annoying. Accidental. It ended up being a little bit expensive, and to get the warranty renewed, I had to put the standard exhaust back on.
Yeah.
And put the standard exhaust back on, got in the car, drove it home, and kind of wanted to sell it.
Yeah.
I hadn't driven it for sort of 2 months or something. I forgot what it sounded like
with
previously.
With the exhaust.
With the exhaust and stuff like that. And there was nothing. It was just like numb. And
it affects you, doesn't it, as a petrol
and
head.
I kept it for... I still got it, but I kept that exhaust on for a couple of months, did a track day. So it's like, well, actually, here's an opportunity to do a track day where I'm not going to be over the noise limit. And even on the track day, I'm used to there's a certain level of noise that makes you feel really connected to a car.
Yeah.
Like when you change gear, if it's a manual and you're blipping and stuff like that, the exhaust needs to be a certain noise level for you to be able to react to the engine note rather than have to sort of learn how to blip the car.
Yep.
You can actually hear it. And
it's part of the senses when you're driving. The engine note itself and the exhaust gives you so much information, doesn't it, in terms of what the car is doing, which you lose in entirety when it comes to electric. But that's another topic altogether.
I put the exhaust I had on it back on again. I was like, oh my god, this car's amazing again. I forgot. And every single new car I drive that hasn't had the exhaust messed with, I'm like,
and that's what's going to happen. And I think this trend you see of big grills and crazy designs and wide arches and fake fins and fake vents. This is all done. It happens so much. Look at the new R8. I don't want to single any particular
loads of
car
Audi,
out,
new
but
Audis
loads of
like
new
that.
Audis have these little black fins. I mean, the Brabus G800 has got criminal amount of vents and fins that are just plastic, with some X's on them.
Yeah.
It's terrible. But all of this is being done even by the mainstream manufacturers to balance out the fact that their cars now are sounding like complete shit. So they're going to give you're spending your money now for big grills and crazy designs rather than those lovely little bits of emotion that you used to feel from the cars. And it's a shame, but this is the direction that I don't think we have to go in that direction. But I think the bigwigs at each manufacturer are so caught up in this whole maelstrom of, Greta and emissions and all this kind of stuff that they don't want to be the next VW, And essentially that fear, it seems to be driving. I mean, that the news broke yesterday, didn't it, about the Alfa Romeo GTV and 8C being cancelled? Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
It's a great example of where the industry is going. Yeah, SUVs are the flavor of the day, and EV SUVs are absolutely perfect as far as the world is concerned.
Yeah, it's. I have a bit of a bone about electric SUVs at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not 100% rationally, but
Tell me, I like irrational bones.
So they're not very economical.
No.
They're super heavy.
Yeah.
And yes, they're electric, but actually they're not that economical. So if you fill them up with electric, obviously you have to fill them, whatever, plug them in. They don't go that far on a massive battery charge.
Yes.
Whether it's 900 volt or whatever. That's not the right capacity.
I know what you're thinking. The newer 800
watt-hours or whatever. Yeah.
Kilowatt battery chargers or whatever they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can drain one of those in 200 miles, which a big SUV
100%.
Totally
that's the max
do.
you're going to get. Yeah.
And that probably costs you, I don't know how much it costs to fill up, but I've got a feeling it's in the region of about £10.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, that's cost-wise a lot less, but then you need to start looking at where this energy is coming from.
That's right.
And at the moment,
our
it's country's
coal-powered. Really,
coal-powered.
Yeah.
So that's not great.
Whenever I take an idea like that is used by mass market to analyze whether it's a good idea for everyone, you have to not look at the fact that only 2% of people are using it. We need to look, what if 99% of people are using this technology? What would the strain be on the power stations? How much more emissions would those be creating? How many abandoned cars would we have on the side of the road? Because generally, all of us people, we're all a little bit disorganized.
Yeah.
You know, we have stressful lives. We can't charge things as efficiently as we should. You know, we think we can get away with, it's showing 15 miles, maybe I'll make it.
I don't like my phone going under 50%.
Yeah.
Stresses me out.
You drive an electric car, you get range anxiety. I every single one I've driven, I've been so stressed at 80%. I'm thinking, why am I stressed?
Yeah.
Because I know, before I know it, if I put my foot down, this thing's going to drain like nothing else. And that gives you so much stress. You've got enough stress when you're driving a car. And then when you're driving a 2.6 ton electric SUV, you're thinking, I don't need this. I'll just drive a little 1 litre something around town instead.
It's for me, the electric cars, I will totally, if I still live in town or if I'm going to have a runabout and have a small car, I'm totally up for having an electric car.
Yeah.
I 100%.
In a city, it's the best thing.
It's just good. And I'm now increasingly aware of pollution levels in cities.
Yeah.
Particularly the tube. I don't know whether you've seen the stats on this.
No.
I did. My girlfriend's doing a PhD in marine biology, studying pollution.
Okay.
And we got given a sort of sensor pollution meter type thing.
Yeah.
Measures pollution levels. And we had a mess with it for a day and recorded loads of different stuff. So we did just ambient levels at home.
Yeah.
Ambient levels outside. Busy street. Behind my old 911, which has no cats.
Yep.
It doesn't do very many miles a year before anyone wants to have a bang on me about that one. But so that measures that level. And then she went on tube to work. I think she went on maybe the Piccadilly line.
Okay.
Something like that. And let's say you go to Gloucester Road, right? Busy, loads of buses. I'm just going to sort of make up some numbers, but this is representative. The level of pollution would say like 20. Let's say if you go on the tube, it was like 10 times more.
Oh my God.
It was like the chart was like that.
Yeah.
And it was up here. And it was worse. It was pretty much the same as standing, breathing in, like as in mouth to the exhaust
behind your 911. Oh my God.
And that's just the ambient level.
That's crazy.
In the tube.
So
I think
cities
the FT
is a big
did
problem.
an article about it. It's a real problem that needs to be sorted. But that's not an electric car. Well, it would help, but it's not really an electric car issue.
In cities, I'm all for it. And what annoys me about EVs, and I reviewed that EQC Mercedes recently, and I thought, nice car, EV, etc. But why wasn't the first base doing an A-Class or something? Which I thought, this makes sense
that's
to
the
me.
obvious one.
I'd love to plod around in something that's, cheap to kind of charge and plod around. You get a lot more miles because it's not as heavy.
Yeah.
That would make sense to me. And it annoys me why there's not more small EVs, at the moment.
Light.
Small and light, yeah. And they kind of, to be smaller, like they need to be built from the ground up, don't they? They can't be based on current chassis, etc. But yeah, cities, but really on motorways and suburban driving, I'm not convinced at all, actually.
And then when you start looking at the lifetime like CO2 emissions of, I'm turning into some sort of green podcast here, but the lifetime CO2 emissions of building and disposing of a car, if you make a massive heavy car with a massive battery pack, to basically recoup that takes like 10 years or something. I'm not sure the 100%, but if you compare, let's say, a reasonably efficient diesel electric car with a big battery pack, there is a certain amount just in the production of that car that it takes a long time to get back. And
I suppose in the disposal of said car as well.
And what was I was looking at something else recently, and they were talking about the materials we use in all structures nowadays. So we use super energy intensive materials because we consider ourselves like advanced. So we love things like carbon fiber. Now, yes, carbon fiber is light, and it might make your car lighter, but to create carbon fiber requires a ton of energy, like pressure, heat, in vast quantities that actually we've just used all these, and steel and all of these things. Whereas if you use something like wood, now I'm not suggesting we always use wood for cars, but like you could make light cars. Morgan has been making wooden cars, and they claim that, and they've tested it, that you can have pretty safe and structurally solid cars which have components made out of wood. Now, wood, you can grow it really quickly, doesn't use any energy to make, slightly better for the planet, whatever. And we're sort of pushed into this cyclical thing of using loads of oil to create all of these things to then burn more oil and blah, 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 blah. And it's like sort of like never ending.
Yeah,
really.
It's a self-fulfilling thing. And I think you see that on all parts of our industry. One is materials. You also look at we were discussing earlier about how powerful modern cars have become and where the sweet spot really is for a car that's fun. Again, we as humans, we just push the envelope sometimes without thinking, do we need to? Almost in a kind of, I think it's almost greed, isn't it? Or something worse.
You want to have the most bling, the biggest number.
Yeah. I mean, I used to run a hire firm for a little while called Velocity Cars, and we had a 488 coupe. Drove that thing, and obviously by that point I've driven a lot of cars. And on the road, it was just too fast for any normal road condition.
Yeah.
You drove it slow, and it wasn't any of the character of the car that you wanted to see. Very recently, I test drove the GT2 RS, which was the best car I've ever driven. But I only realised that when I took it to Longcross filming studios, and I was able to give it some welly, because on a normal road, all I was hearing was the rear brake screeching, really hard suspension, and none of the fun that you get from that car.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm sure you go 3-4 generations back and you look at just a normal Carrera S, you'd probably derive 1,000 times more pleasure on a normal road.
100%.
And I think this is the problem we're having. There's a sweet spot, and I agree with your estimation, of about 450 bhp in a reasonably weighted car.
The key is the weight.
Yeah. I think, what would you give as a good example of a car like that?
So the reason I say 450 horsepower, my GT3 RS is like 1350 kilos, something like that. 450 horsepower, Porsche horses, so they give a bit more go. Yeah. But that, you get in something modern and fast, it doesn't feel anywhere like that. Like 720S is just like gone. But if you could get the weight down a bit more, let's say, I mean, you're then pushing it in both directions, something like a 600 LT. I haven't actually driven one. I'd like to drive one.
I haven't either, actually.
They're probably,
it's on the bucket list,
12 something in weight.
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess. And 600 horsepower-ish.
Yeah.
That's more than enough.
Yeah.
That's way, way, way more than enough. Whereas,
I mean, the cars we've got with 7 pushing 800 horsepower, I just don't see the point.
Yeah.
And we love cars. We're the ones saying, oh, why are you doing EVs? But what is the need for these?
And everything is just getting, like, the new M3.
Yeah.
It's going to be 4-wheel drive.
Yeah.
It's going to have, whatever, 550 horsepower, but so what?
Does it need it?
Like, I've driven the latest M5.
Yeah.
It's a good car, but that's got, I don't know, it's getting on 600 horsepower ish.
Close enough, yeah.
But it doesn't, you get in it, and this was the bit that weirded me out. You get in some of these cars, these big saloons, like your
The GT4 door.
GT4 door.
Yeah.
How much horsepower has that got?
640.
So 640, that's a serious amount of horsepower. And imagine you get in it and you put your foot down, and it's obviously it's quick.
Yeah.
But it doesn't equate to what in my head when I first drove, let's say I had a 981 Boxster.
Yeah.
Which was 320 something horsepower
Yeah.
or whatever. This will not feel over 2 times as fast or 2 times as fast as
No,
that.
it won't.
Like
No, it won't.
not even a
It's almost
nowhere
become a
near.
mathematical equation now that for a car of the size and the weight of a GT63S to be able to perform, I mean, hats off to AMG. It's at the moment, I think it's the quickest 4-door on the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
With, I think it's like 20 seconds quicker than a Cayman GT4, which is crazy for a huge 2-ton saloon, right? But it's a mathematics exercise, isn't it? It's how do we manage the weight of this car in a way that we can achieve that lap time? It's a great achievement. But when I first heard about that car being created, I kind of asked them, well, why is it the size of an S-Class? Why did you have to make such a huge car with all the technological garbles in it? I just want an AMG GT with a couple of extra seats.
Yeah.
It can be a lot lighter. I don't need lane keeping assist or, blind spot assist or soft closing doors. I just want a sports car with 4 seats or 5 seats. Why didn't you make it smaller than a C63? Oh, but the competition and Panamera and I'm just thinking, well, you've got this arse upwards.
Yeah, because they also make loads of cars. When I look at the Mercedes range, I get a bit confused.
There's loads of models.
There's a lot of models, and particularly in, I would say, that sort of space.
Yeah.
Which was, if I was just looking at like slightly silly cars that you can get 4 or 5 people in, that
There's
have a
loads
boot
of them.
and whatever.
You'd be inundated.
What have we got?
You've got, start from the bottom, you've got CLA 45.
Yeah.
Is a good one, or even CLA 35 now to make things even more confusing. You've got CLS 53, you've got E53 in its various wagon, coupe, cab forms. You've got E63, which everybody knows about in saloon and wagon form. You've got GT63S. You've got all the SUVs, I guess.
Yeah.
GLC 63, GLE 63, and the 53s and the 43s. And there's this Friday, I'm going to drive GLB 35.
Right, yeah. I didn't realise there was a B class until today when I looked. How long has the B class been around
B
for?
class has been around for quite a while. It's on its 3rd generation now. It's been a good selling car for like families and stuff, and it still kind of is today. It's not really what you expect Mercedes to really make. It's a little people carrier.
Okay.
It does well enough. The GLB is kind of a small 7-seater. That's the size of a GLC.
Right.
But based on the A-Class platform.
Okay.
So you get A-Class interior, A-Class seats, etc., etc. But they've decided to do an AMG variant of it.
Okay.
So GLB 35, which we're about to test.
Okay.
Now, I know some people who might want to buy this, but we're getting into these little niches. And then they're making a GLB 45S. And I'm thinking, why so many models?
Yeah.
And then they're axing the stuff that's really important. So I heard recently they were going to do a final C63 of this generation because the next one is turning into a 4-cylinder. Yeah. And you can imagine the AMG fan base. And to be fair, what I read was that AMG CEO Tobias Moores stormed out the meeting effing and blinding when the decision was made, probably by Daimler, because it's probably their best-selling car at AMG in terms of bread and butter. So I think manufacturers, they've got, it's the totality of emissions, isn't it? Or
yes,
I don't know how it works.
The entirety of their range.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but I assume that's why the C-Class was targeted. So that they were due to make like the final version of that car. And it would have been something like the C63 Black Series, which everybody loves and knows about. I mean,
Sick car.
if you're a layman and you talk about AMG, that car probably comes up very quickly in your mind. And they were due to make this car. It was going to have a titanium exhaust, different body kit, etc., etc. And it recently got cancelled. And I just stepped back and I thought, this is AMG. If you don't understand that your customers would be offended by the fact that you're going to cancel what is essentially your flagship model. Because look, the AMG GT isn't. It's a great car, and it's not really a 911 rivaling car, but it is a great car in itself, as a kind of supercar thrills car. But when we think AMG, we don't think that. We think a crazy C63, probably the Black Series, because of all the amazing press it got when it came on Top Gear, etc., etc. Even the SLS Black doesn't. For me, I don't think it's at the level of the C. And to cancel, it's like Porsche cancelling the GT3 RS.
Yeah.
And just being okay with it and building a Macan GT3 or something.
Yeah.
Right? And you just think you've lost touch with what makes you you. But I think we're going to see a lot of that happening. Alpha is a good example of the news that broke recently. And I think you're going to see it across the board.
I think totally. And it's definitely depressing because, like you said, if someone said AMG to me, I would not say A45 or anything other than first one would be C63.
Yeah.
That's like numero uno AMG car.
Yeah.
And then, some other. Then it becomes a certain car with an AMG engine in it.
Yeah. It's either C or it's maybe E63. And those translate back to the original cars that were really famous for AMG, like the AMG Hammer, which was essentially the car. It was the AMG, so you had a saloon and you had a coupe.
Yeah.
And that's what the C63 and the E63 fill. So those are the cars we think of. They're the ones that really should be focused on, but it's all a money-making game now, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's getting every single niche that you can possibly get and selling to as many people as you can.
Presumably, manufacturing-wise, it doesn't cost anywhere near as much to do a slight different off-spin of a platform now.
No, I think that's why they're doing it. I think all this platform sharing, it's great if you really want a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche for those particular customers, but it's making things very confusing for all of us.
So confusing. So I thought, since I had Mr. AMG on the podcast,
Yeah.
I thought we could maybe do a little run through
Yeah.
the entire Mercedes range.
Have you got another couple of hours?
But I'll try and we can try and condense it a little bit. And I thought maybe you could explain
why
each model and potentially why someone might buy it or why it's different.
Yeah. Okay.
So we'll start at the bottom.
I will attempt this.
So we got A class.
Yeah.
Now under.
Now, there's a lot of different A classes as well. You see.
Yeah. So I was just trying to think how we split this because we've got A, B, C, E, and S.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
And then there's G versions, which are the giant SUV versions.
The big SUVs
of pretty much all of these cars.
Yes.
But you look at, let's say, that A class now, and we have the A class, the A saloon, and then we have CLA.
Yep.
And CLA coupe.
So you have just in A class family, you've got the A class, which is a hatchback. You've got the A saloon, as you said. You've got the CLA, which is essentially a four-door coupe, like a small CLS.
Yeah.
Then you've got the GLB, which I mentioned, which is like the seven-seater of that platform. You've essentially got a whole family of cars there. There's another one coming, which we used to have before, called the GLA. Do you remember the GLA? Which is like a fat A-class, essentially. That's also coming. So if you look at the A-class family in isolation, it's almost an entire family of cars. And then you go to the next level, the C level, and you've got C-class, you've got C-class coupe, C-class cabriolet, you've got the GLCs. It's almost another family.
Yeah.
Then you go into the E's, and again, I'm probably going through your list very quickly.
Okay, I can just show you the list.
The E's have got another huge family of cars. E Saloon, E Cab, E Coupe, GLE is part of the E family.
Is there no E63 coupe?
I think, and whoever I've spoken to has said this, that if they made that car, it would be so good that it would cannibalize 90% of GT sales, for example.
That's a rubbish argument.
That's what I've been told.
Maybe you could cannibalize your GT 4-door.
Yeah, and that might be the reason. That might be the reason they did it. I don't think it's the right reason because I think so many people would want that car. But then I struggle with what we were talking about earlier, that even if that car existed, would I want it over a C63 coupe? I don't really think I would. And if I did, I think I'd feel a bit guilty
Really?
Yeah, because I think that the essence of an AMG, regardless of all these four-wheel drive cars they've been coming out with, it is a rear-wheel drive, daily usable car that you can really enjoy on a normal road. Yeah. Sounds really good, looks really good. For an E63S coupe with almost 600 brake horsepower, it just feels wrong to me.
We're in that M5 territory that we've got to.
Yeah.
Now. But what if it was rear-wheel drive? But let's wind back 5 years.
Yeah, if it was rear, well, they should have done it. They should have done it, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They missed an opportunity with the 212 series, or 213 rather. Was it 212? 213. Don't quote me on either of those. I can't remember.
I don't know my Mercedes numbers.
They missed it in the previous generation. That's when they should have done it, when they had all the rear-wheel drive E-classes.
Yeah.
It wasn't the prettiest body, but, AMG can work their magic on it. That would have been the time to have done it at about 550, 560 brake horsepower, rear-wheel drive. Yeah, exciting car. And that could still work today, I think, if it was rear-wheel drive. But they wouldn't dare do it because they'd be too afraid of people asking, oh, but why's my coupe not got the 600 brake horsepower that the saloon does?
Yeah.
All these kind of questions.
The bit that's... So before I got my S4 event, I was looking at similar sorts of cars, and I thought, okay, C63, I've sort of loved the look of the C63 coupe for a long time, but I wanted something a bit more practical. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll go and drive a C-Class estate, a C63 estate. And unfortunately, for me, it was a massive letdown.
Okay. Did you drive pre-facelift or facelift? So the GTR style grille or the flat
good question. It didn't have the full digital dash.
Okay.
It was like a 17, 18 car.
Yeah. Okay. Pre-facelift. Yeah.
And the things that got me straight away were the ride.
It's quite harsh.
It's quite harsh.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a running thing has been across a lot of brands.
Yeah.
But I was told, like, if you had a E63, really solid ride.
Yeah.
Why do all these cars have really solid rides? Why does a C63 have a really solid ride?
I think it was a decision that they made at that time to give it a certain type of suspension. In fact, I know this to be a fact. And the engineers wanted to give it something a bit more pliable because they thought it would actually drive a lot better in terms of dynamics as well. So that's actually what they've done in the facelift. If you drive a facelift C63, it's a different car in terms of suspension.
Really?
It's really, really different.
That's quite interesting.
When I recently bought my pre-facelift C63 coupe, I thought the suspension was broken because I was so used to driving the facelift one. But that's just the nature of that car. It was a decision that they made to make the car a bit more raw. I kind of appreciate it now only because I'm looking for something a bit more analog where I am today.
Yeah.
But, for a daily car, it is off-putting.
Massively.
We kind of balance that out with how much great sound you're getting out of the engine, but that's a folly of all AMG addicts. We kind of smother that over any issues that the car has, Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It does have a harsh ride, for sure.
Yeah, and I the other thing is I think I'm I'm an Audi fanboy at heart. Well, I'm a Porsche guy at heart, but I also like Audi. And I didn't like that car had... I think it was a black pack interior.
Yeah.
And I didn't like just the amount of plastic.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really... Any car that has that piano black center console on the used market is almost like to anyone.
Yeah.
You rather just have the black wood trim or
totally.
Definitely the carbon. But yeah, that piano black piece is awful. Anything but that would have been good. Even a satin black piece would have been all right,
It's a very odd...
It really puts you off.
Choice.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's kind of... I call it SE level trim. You expect it on a kind of C130 from back in the day.
Yeah.
Not a C63.
Okay, and then when you get to sort of... Okay, we've sort of run through some of the range, but my specific point when I was at Goodwood this year and I saw a bunch of... I hadn't been to a Mercedes showroom in a while.
Yeah.
And saw there was a bunch of cars lined up, and it sort of interested me because there was at one point in time where I was considering getting like a 2015 S-Class coupe.
Okay.
As like a runabout.
Yeah. That's
or
a nice
as
runabout.
My daily... Not like runabout, but like my daily car.
Yeah.
Because they've depreciated quite a lot. And I thought, okay, maybe
so
I could get a 63 or maybe a 500. And that is kind of the current car-ish, pretty much. Interior is the same.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will...
No,
it's probably loads of little difference, but...
The essence of the car is there.
The essence of the car is the same. And then I was like, okay, let's have a look at the other cars out there.
Yeah.
The main problem I had with that car is it was too big.
Yeah.
It's just a
huge
beast.
It's huge
for something that's got 2 doors.
Yeah.
So
And the seats in the back aren't particularly big either.
Yeah.
I think you get more room inside a C-Class rear coupe.
Yeah. And then you can't fold them down.
No.
So you don't actually have a massive boot.
Yeah.
In this huge car. That's when I started thinking, okay, is there like a E-Class E63 coupe? And then I was told, no, that doesn't exist.
No.
Then, so what is the CLS?
Yeah.
What is the CLS?
The CLS has almost become an extra car in the range. Originally it was designed as this beautiful 4-door coupe. Everyone referred to it as the banana car when it first came out because no one had a roofline like that in a 4-door. Yeah. And it genuinely stood out. I think the design was probably the best design of any Merc of its time. Since then, I feel it's a bit of an afterthought. So it's just I mean, you can get 5 seats in it now. Before it was only a 4-seater. But it's kind of become this, slightly more stylish E-Class. Again, it's kind of a niche of a niche. I don't think the current E-Class is bad looking.
Yeah.
In fact, I prefer it to the CLS, which is odd. When I'm told I should prefer the CLS in terms of looks, but I don't. CLS just has an A-Class's front end plonked on it and really ugly rear lights. So it shouldn't really be there in the form that it's in, I don't think. If you were going to make a cool 4-door coupe with a swoop back, I think C-Class size, again, I like small cars, don't I? But I think C-Class size car would have been cooler, maybe slightly wider arches or something to set it apart. It shouldn't be... One big sin is having the same interior as an E-Class. When the CLS first came out, it had a different dash on the front.
Yeah.
It was different enough that owners would say, yeah, okay, that's a CLS, and it looks quite cool. It's got kind of this encompassing front dash. Now you just get the E-Class one, and it right royally pisses me off in my GT63 as well. Yes, I've got the lovely V8 center console with the gear stick there where it should be, but I've still got an E-Class front dash.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So I saw the CLS.
Yeah.
I saw an E-Class, I saw the CLS, and then next door to it was an AMG GT 4-door.
Yep.
And you're looking at all these cars, and the price difference between a CLS and an AMG GT 4-door
it's massive.
Is massive.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, what's the difference between these two cars?
Yeah. I mean, in truth, there's big differences. Not only dynamically, the body is so much wider in the GT 4-door. It is genuinely kind of a proper AMG product. But when you're looking at it in that way, when you've got 2 very similar cars sitting on essentially the same platform, you're kind of really wondering what they're doing, especially then inside when you do the sin of having the same interior.
Yeah, the same interior.
You're like, what are you guys thinking? But again, it's that copy-paste element that you were talking about. It's so easy for the manufacturers to just copy-paste, change this, change that. That's not what they've done in the 4-door. It's genuinely, to achieve what it's achieving is great. But, for the layman looking outside in, you're like, really?
Yeah. And it's tricky. I think you shouldn't do that to yourself.
No.
Or you should try and avoid doing it. And some manufacturers get a lot of flack and totally warranted for bringing out... Okay, let's give an example. Let's say... McLaren did this with the Senna.
Yeah.
Bring out the Senna. Senna seats.
Yeah.
They're called the Senna seats. And then 3 months later, 600 LT, and you can have it with the Senna seats. Like, come on, guys. Like, I understand they're cool seats. You like them, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But you've just put it in effectively
product.
The cheapest model of, like, the cheapest, sportiest version of your car with one of the most expensive.
They all do it though. I mean,
they do all do it.
The worst
918 seats. Yeah, GT4.
Yeah, the worst one probably is AMG. Actually, I think they took. It's a small part of the car, but if I was a Project One AMG One customer, I would be pissed. On the steering wheel, they got this lovely F1 inspired steering wheel.
Yeah,
and within that, the first time they showed it, they had these great dials which changed the mode of the car.
Yeah.
And they were like these LED dials, and you saw Lewis Hamilton in the promo thing changing it to like an EV and then Sport Plus and then all this stuff, and you're like, wow, on a Halo car, that's pretty cool. And then a couple of weeks later, it was in pretty much every AMG. Those little dials. Now it's great for us, as
there needs to be a delay.
Yeah,
or don't show it,
or make a different size, shape, screen, or something. Don't put the same part from your £2.7 million hypercar in a GLB 35. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's just wrong.
You want, I get it, if the car's been out for 2 years already,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like a little bit annoying, but
Yeah.
okay.
Or if it comes in like the next generation of cars,
Yeah.
3-4 years
starts
down the line.
in the S or
Car's
whatever.
not even out yet.
So where are we at with the Project One?
I don't know. There was a customer event a month near the Frankfurt Motor Show, and a lot of videos came on Instagram of this flyby of a camo car. I think Mauro Engel was driving it. That's the last we heard of it. It was meant to be out in 2020. From what I originally understood, it was going to be mid to late 2020 deliveries. But my understanding, and I've not heard this officially, that they're struggling with emissions or homologation with the engine, etc. So I don't know what's going to happen with it.
The rumor that I heard, or the sort of random feedback through channels that I heard at that AMG meeting, they asked everyone, "What engine do you want in the car?"
Okay.
Like, if it,
yeah,
if it can't be this one,
would you mind a 53?
Would you like a V12?
Yeah.
Like, anything else? I don't know.
I find it weird.
Cool.
I don't think
it's engine in it.
I don't think AMG should have ever gone that route. Personally,
no.
I don't understand what prompted them to outlay so much money and do so much for something that historically before that they always said no, we're not in the hypercar market, and they weren't. They build at the most reasonably fast supercars.
Yeah.
For me, the AMG One is a big marketing exercise that links very strongly to F1, which is, of course, it's a great flag bearer for Mercedes around the world. But, I'd love to know what is being axed, because that's being built as well.
Yeah. Is your Black Series being axed?
Maybe it was, I think the true Halo flagship for the brand will be the GT Black Series when that comes out.
Do we have a timeline? Vague timeline for that?
I reckon next year sometime they'll show it.
Year.
I think they'll show it sometime next year. It's exciting. From what I've heard, they have a very high revving V8 engine and plenty different within that engine to allow that, because I reckon it'll still be a turbo. But yeah, it should. They're chasing GT2 RS, so it's got to be good. They've had enough time to do it. Yeah. So, let's see if they can get it to that level.
GT2 RS, I don't know whether it ever was a super popular car. Like if you look back historically,
it wasn't. The GT2 really wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't.
And
everyone loves the GT3s,
but GT3 is the one that
in that sense, I think the GTR is good enough. It genuinely, the pre-facelift one, the sound it gives, the performance it has, it's similar enough to a GT3 in terms of performance, while giving the AMG customer what they want in terms of crazy looks and sound.
Yeah.
So
I really like the GTR.
The true flagship really is the GTR, really. And it is pretty much the best car they've ever built so far, I think.
Yeah.
If you're looking at pure driving dynamics. Yeah.
How is so you've got a Pro now?
Yeah.
How are you finding that?
I haven't driven it enough, Sam, to be honest. I had a good go at it at Hockenheim. It was very good at kind of dealing with the apexes and bumps compared to the GTR because of the adjusted suspension. There's no more power in it, so you don't really feel that. Do you really feel the downforce?
Probably not.
Probably not. You feel the lack of sound, which is unfortunate. That's made up by more extreme design, as we were discussing. Yeah. This is the way of things. Really, I think I prefer my GTR.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I knew I would when I bought it. Why did I buy it? I really want a Black Series. So
I was about to say the Black Series has got to be the one.
Yeah, I really want a Black Series, but I wanted to give the Pro a chance as well. I hope I don't lose money on it, because that would be very unfortunate. Yeah, I had so much fun in the GTR. I thought I should give the Pro a chance and see, if it's as good. Because the GTR is great daily as well, in the sense that it's not too harsh on daily roads. It can do the whole nice V8 rumble while you're sitting in traffic type thing.
Quite a big boot.
Yeah, it's very decent boot thanks to the hatchback as well. So yeah, I'm giving it a chance. Let's see in a month's time what I think of it when I have a chance to really push it.
Yeah, weirdly, the GTR, I remember when Tim was saying he was going to order his, I was like, and then I wanted a GT3 at the time.
Yeah.
Didn't get a slot, and then just sort of forgot about the entire thing.
Yeah.
And a large part of me wishes I'd ordered a GTR, run it for a year.
Yeah.
Sold it, probably similar money when you sell it, I guess, if over a year, maybe.
Yeah, if you'd kept it for a year, you would have been all right.
Yeah, and then
not in
it
today's
started-
market. Today's market,
Yeah,
it's,
but it
it's
makes
probably
it-
one of the best cars you can buy for the money today.
Yeah,
You know, you could
and,
probably pick one up for sub 100, which is ridiculous.
like, I don't know whether that layout. I've never really gelled with that layout.
Yeah,
of engine
front
layout,
mid-engine and
like a
rear-wheel
long bonnet
drive.
type thing.
Yeah,
But it's just quite. It is a cool car,
yeah,
and everyone haven't really driven one.
Yeah.
But everyone I know that's driven one, Tim loved his.
yeah.
Has now bought every version and whatever of it.
He's Tim. He has to.
He has to.
We don't need press departments anymore. We just go straight to Tim and say, Tim, can I borrow? Well, I need a Toyota Supra today, or a, a Jimny or something, and he'll sort you out. He's a nice guy as well, so you won't say no.
Yeah, exactly. Have you had any interesting? You had the GT2 RS.
Yeah.
Have you had any other interesting cars recently that you've driven that stand out for a good reason or a bad reason?
If we talk about pure fun, one of the most fun cars I had recently has to be, although it goes against everything we were saying in terms of horsepower and whatnot, the DBS Superleggera from Aston. That was so much fun.
What was specifically fun about it?
Well, I love the V12 engine, first of all, and the fact that you had a Daimler brain in the car that wasn't going to die on you.
That spoke to you, that I did.
Yeah, that gave confidence that you could kind of enjoy yourself without worrying about the car breaking down somewhere. But having that classic GT look about the car, bit of Bond heritage, screaming V12, crazy amounts of pull. Yeah, it was really fun. I came away from that thinking, okay, it's not the fastest car in the world. Yes, it's expensive, but I think I'd give my left one for that car.
Yeah. It's the car from Aston.
Yeah.
The Vantage doesn't do it for me. I don't like the looks.
Yeah. Is it the front end that gets
It's
you?
the front end,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a bit too Mercedes-y
On the inside?
on the inside.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't really excite me that much. I'm sure it's a good car.
It's funny, the Andy Palmer's personal Vantage has a slightly different hood.
Does it?
So, the Vantage's hood is quite plain.
Yeah, yeah.
His one has got kind of the scoops that you have in the DBS.
Oh, really?
But only his has it.
Oh, that probably makes it look quite a lot better.
And it looked a lot better. I saw this at HQ at Gaydon, and I was like, okay. So he
Yeah.
knows what works on the car, does he?
But the DBS,
Yeah.
I look at the DBS and I'm like, yes, it looks muscular. It looks like a bit of a muscle car. It's got a big V12.
Yeah.
It just looks cool.
Yeah.
Badass.
And it kind of drives the way it looks. So what you imagine looking at it is what you get out of it, which is nice because
Yeah.
you don't always get that these days from a car. So yeah, that I really came away from thinking that's a cool car. GT2 RS has stuck with me only because I don't think I've driven anything that was just so raw in terms of hearing every mechanical aspect of the car, be it just the scrunching of the brakes or something that the engine's doing or whatever it was, you could hear it in that car. And there was just something very raw and wonderful about that. And I don't know how long we'll be able to experience that for, going into the future.
Not long, I don't think. You've done a bit of ice driving.
Yeah.
I think that is a great way of testing how connected you feel to a car as soon as you drive on snow. Because basically you've got no friction whatsoever within reason. And we've done a couple of times a trip out there and in a bunch of different cars. And of all the cars that were out there, we had a mix of modern supercar type stuff and then older stuff. I took my old 911. We had an E36 M3.
Is that where your icon?
Yeah, that was from there.
Okay.
That was on an ice track.
Right.
And you get in these older things and you just feel everything. Whereas you get in a modern car on snow and it's just this one big numb experience. You can't feel a thing.
That's a really interesting comparison, actually, to do it on the snow. Because I don't think you can appreciate that really on a normal road. Can you?
I don't, because I think the differences are not highlighted anywhere near as much.
Yeah.
But for example, whether it's electronic steering or cars with like ABS and just all of this electronic stuff, because the friction level is so much lower, these differences, I think, get massively exasperated because you can't load up the steering at all.
No.
So it's the difference between none and a bit versus none and none.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so weird. All these heavier systems, all these systems that people have to put into cars because the car's heavier to make it do the
Or safety is the other stuff,
and
isn't
safety.
it? Yeah.
It's
Is there any way we can rein this all back? Do you think there's a hope for kind of my personal hope is that everyone will come to the realization that the combustion engine paired with electric is the right way to go.
I think that's the right way.
And then you still got something familiar with something that's clean and easy and something you can charge viably or self-charge while you're driving.
I think we need to get the weights of these battery packs and systems down.
Yeah.
But we're starting to see it in small cars like the new Golf. There's a couple of mild hybrid options.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of, let's say, fuel economy and that sort of thing, having a small hybrid system in your car that does the pulling away from a light or just the getting you from moving at 0 miles an hour to moving at 20 miles an hour, and then the petrol takes over.
Or like cruising speeds or...
exactly. Like that drastically increases your miles per gallon in a car. Because like, you'll know, driving a turbo V8 or something round town, just start, stop, you get like...
It's killer.
8 mpg or something ridiculous.
That's the worst part, So the other problem we have, I think, is cars are growing in size too much.
They're so big.
Or what, do they need to be this big?
They're also big, but not big.
Yeah.
Like you get in... The craziest one is when you get in like an old car.
Yeah.
Like an old Mini.
Yeah.
Or like my 911.
Yeah.
It's a tiny car.
Yeah.
But it's quite a lot of space inside.
Yeah.
And then you compare it to...
Jump in a 992 and you're like, have I really
992.
got that much more?
And the space is like similar.
Yeah, they're saying you can see everything's tightly packaged in terms of the packaging is brilliant, but where's all that? Why is it so big? Where's all the
extra space?
Where is it?
And like you open the bonnet on my old 911 and you can put loads of luggage in there.
Yeah.
It's just an empty space.
Yeah.
Whereas now we have these small, tiny holes in the front of whatever bonnet of whatever car.
Hand luggage is in there if you're lucky.
Yeah, like, you buy one of these new crazy hypercars.
Yeah.
And you don't even get, like, some of them you literally just don't get space. Like, well, that's all very well, but where are you going to drive this car?
They're probably not. It's probably going to sit in a garage somewhere.
Sit in a garage. If you had to go for a modern hypercar, or let's say you had given a budget of a modern hypercar, what would you go for?
I really love the Singer design vehicles. To me, that is a hypercar where you've taken something and you've meticulously detailed every millimeter of it. I saw the DLS at the previous year's Goodwood.
Yeah.
The white one they had there.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything
That
like
interior.
it. And to me, that the interior was actually done by Proto Trim up in Milton Keynes, which I wasn't aware of.
Really? I didn't know that.
So the guys who did Tim's Fiesta.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And in fact, they helped me with the C63S I just brought. I got a new seat cover for the driver's chair, and that's when I found out. Really talented guys, but that car, I don't think there's anything that's had that much love put into it that I've seen.
Yeah.
As far as you even look at the little nuts and bolts that they're using on it, they seem to be bespoke.
Yeah.
Or if they're not, then they definitely fit the design language.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be something like that, I think. Or because of my AMG bias, maybe a Pagani. I love the look of the original Huayra without any of the extra BC trimmings, etc.
And your Huayra over Zonda?
Yeah, I just love the gull wings. To me, it's a bit of a Mercedes link.
Yeah.
Not too bothered about the Pagani side. Plus, a very good friend of mine is an engine builder at AMG, F1 Mike on Instagram, F1 Mike 28, Michael Kubler. And he builds all the engines. And being a mate, you just want an engine from your mate.
Yeah,
almost.
that's cool.
So it's a big bias for me with the whole Pagani side.
Yeah, I 100%. If you said you could have 2 million or 3 million to buy one car, okay, ignoring like investment and blah 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 blah. I would love to put my money into something like a Singer or something, something that's just a cool car, full stop. That's light. Like, I love the idea of Gordon Murray's new car, the T50 or whatever it's going to call it. It's going to be, 1 ton, 650 horsepower. It's not like 4,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
But if it's 1 ton and it's 650 horsepower and it revs to 13
it might as well
or
be
15,
Yeah.
like that's, what more could you want?
No.
That's going to drive amazingly.
Yeah.
Or could drive,
In
probably
theory.
will
Yeah.
drive amazingly. Like something like a Singer, 500 horsepower, probably 1100 kilos. I don't know how much they weigh, something like that. Designed. It's that thing of looking at every, like you like this sort of same sort of thing. Like you look at all the details.
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's everything about it. It's
not just plastic everywhere and whatever.
No. Or even if there was plastic, it's there for a purpose.
Yeah, and it fits.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with those cars.
No.
I really don't.
Right. Normally, at sort of the end of these podcasts, I ask 5 questions.
Go for it.
Do you have a most memorable driving trip or journey?
I think the one that I enjoyed the most was the first ever road trip that I did from the UK to AMG of Halterbach. Only because it was the first time I ever did it. It was in this C63 Motorsport, actually. And for an AMG fan, it kind of felt like a homecoming. Yeah. And I always say when I go there, it's like coming home. And I wasn't huge on social media back then. None of that mattered. It was more with some friends, driving on some great roads, lucky with weather in October, taking some great pictures, exploring, food places and going to a place that as petrol heads we love, then seeing the engine building stuff and little behind the scenes things. I really enjoyed that road trip. For me, as a petrol head, it hit the spot. Yeah. I think, especially as an AMG addict. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I would really recommend anyone to. You've driven all through Europe, I'm sure, that the roads you get in France and Germany, even driving at normal speeds, are so much better than what we have here in the UK. That you'll just be smiling all the way there and back.
So. And Germany is it's great to drive around.
Yeah,
just a really cool looking place.
It's so beautiful. When I first went there, when I was much younger, being naive, you assume Germany to be all industrial, don't you? But it's so green.
So green. It's rolling countryside and forests and
flat, pitch black roads with crisp white lines and people who actually know how to use lanes. It's a revolution, to be honest. Driving in Germany, but yeah, beautiful country, great roads. You have to, if you're in the UK and you want a good road trip, drive up to Germany and back. You will not regret it. It's incredible.
Go to the Nürburgring or something.
Do something, anything.
Yeah, well worth it. Right, next question. 5-car garage, unlimited value, has to fit into your lifestyle.
Oh gosh, I think I'm nearing it as an AMG addict. They're probably not going to be choices that everybody would jive with, but we were discussing like hot hatches earlier and what makes a good hot hatch. And I really enjoyed the original A45. It's not a particularly dynamic car, but for an AMG hot hatch, it had an amazing sounding 4-cylinder engine that eventually formed into the V8 that we have today. It had reasonable looks for its time. It looked like a mini C63 Black Series back then, if we can rewind our minds. So as a little hot hatch, I've always adored that car. So I've managed to find one with just 7,000 miles on it. I don't know how. So I've bought that. That's gone into my keep forever. C63 Black Series has to be, because it is the quintessential AMG as far as I'm concerned. 510 brake horsepower, rear wheel drive, great aero. Grip. It's insane. It's like Christmas lights on the driver's dash, but hydraulic steering. When do we get that anymore? It's a superb car, and I think as an AMG fan, it's the one that again we all think about that car. Beyond that, I think not enough people credit the current C63S, so the pre-facelift with the 4-litre bi-turbo. I think for the money, the sound and how dynamic that car is given its size and weight, it's just that sweet spot, Sam. It really, you get almost as much sound as a GTR out of it, sometimes more in that car, which is astounding for a little two-door 4-seater. The electronic steering on it, you will only feel the difference between that and a Black Series if you drove them back to back. In every other discernible area, it's better than my Black Series. I know it is. I've pushed them both extremely hard. And then it's got the wide body that the Black had, etc. So for sure, I think that's one in there.
You'd have that and another C63 Black Series in your 5-car unlimited value garage.
I'd have both of them.
Fair play.
Because unlimited value is one thing, but like you said, you got to fit it into your lifestyle.
Yeah, for sure.
So I see the A45 as the car that you kind of plod around in, but you still have a smile on your face. Yep. I see the Black Series as your very rarely used,
bit of history,
analog track car. And the C63, again, it's a great daily car. if you can get over the suspension
Yeah.
that you mentioned. The other two are interesting. I don't think I've found them yet. Out of the cars that I've driven so far, and I'm wondering whether the GT3 RS is going to change my mind, I'd love the GT2 RS in that garage. Again, coming back to how raw and connected that felt. And I think it's almost everything that's good about an overpowered super performance car exists within the GT2 RS. The way it looks, the way it drives, the performance it creates. Yes, an SVJ might be 2 seconds faster on the ring, but the Porsche is just, well, it's a Porsche, isn't it?
An SVJ is not 2 seconds faster around the ring.
Is it not? I thought...
Like,
it
is,
yeah,
but no way.
Yeah. I keep reading these articles about them speeding up lap times. But
yeah, I've seen a lot of... potentially,
there's a lot of discussion.
That car
let's
did
put
that
it
lap
way.
time.
Yeah.
But they... With the Manti Racing tweaks,
yes,
it was, 10 seconds faster?
It was
and
faster.
you know that...
Aren't they owned by Porsche anyway?
Yeah, they're part owned by
Manti
Porsche
Racing,
now. As much as people say, like, oh, you're just a Porsche fanboy.
Yeah.
If you go and drive an Aventador and just drive it around and then get in a GT3 RS, for example, you're quite aware that one's just going to be better going around the track.
Yeah. And you don't need to drive them that fast to realise that either.
No, you don't. I think I need to bring my GT3 RS to your house and you need to have a go in it.
I think we need to do that.
Like 100%.
Yeah.
I think.
And then you'll get a chance to drive the Pro.
Yes. Let's do that. 100%.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think you'll enjoy the manual experience.
Yeah.
Okay,
there's one more slot there.
Mm.
I think the Singer has to go in there because we mentioned it. I've got too many track cars in there. It's fine. The A45 can do the grocery run. Yeah, I think the Singer.
But all of those cars you could drive daily if you wanted. They're not necessarily track cars.
Yeah. I mean the ilk of kind of the mid-engine 458 type cars, they're lovely cars, but for me, I've always preferred the kind of classic, either Porsche look or the kind of the GT-esque look of a car. So, yeah, that would be mine.
Good times.
It's a good one to look at, I think.
It is. And then it changes all the time.
Yeah.
When you're like, oh, my usage of cars has totally changed. And actually asking people these questions regularly and having to think about it myself has really made me think about my car collection. Yeah. I have 5 cars. So, and I'm like, well, if you sold them all and started again, would you have the same ones? And I think
it's worth reevaluating sometimes.
Most people would probably not have the same ones that they had because circumstances change or whatever. And I realized at one point, very recently, that all my cars were very similar. Yeah. They were all very sort of driver-focused, sporty cars, even down to the M2 that I was driving daily. And actually, I was like, hang on a minute. If I go into my garage and go, which one could you take? And the option is you could take any one of them at any time because they're all similar. Yeah. That's not a good... No. You're not giving you much choice.
No, you're not. I was guilty of that. I think not more than a year or so ago when I had a lot of these V8 bi-turbo Mercs. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, they're all different in their own ways. Yeah. But, it can all become very samey. And you need to have, as you said, that kind of variety in there somewhere, which is the right approach to take. So have you changed yours then at all?
The only change at the moment, and I'm sure changes will happen, selling cars I find emotionally difficult though. Yeah. I changed my M2 for an S4 van. Okay. And it's like more comfy, more space, just ticks a lot of boxes.
I think a pretty cool decision though, because you've looked at things in a kind of real way rather than what would be cooler. Yeah. Not realizing that this actually could be cooler just to have a more kind of practical car.
Yeah, and the one that I find tricky is having the old 911 and the GT3 RS. Yeah. And I love the GT3 RS. As a car, I think it's a phenomenal car. But most of the time when I get a choice between which car to drive, and let's just say the old 911 or the GT3 RS, I drive the old 911. It's just a bit cooler, a bit more interesting to drive at lower speeds. They're both kind of fun. They're both fun, full stop. But it's like a bit harder. It's just a bit older. And I generally choose that car to drive.
There's a certain pull towards these kind of cars, isn't there?
Yeah, and
it really is.
It's tricky then because you go, okay, well, I love the GT3 RS, and if I could never sell it and just have that money to put into another car, that would 100%. It would just go into a garage, and I'd keep it forever because I've got loads of memories with it and whatever. But I'm now thinking if I'm gonna stay with the same number of cars. I don't know whether you found this. Is when you've got one car, you get one car. If you then have two cars, the idea of going back to one car is quite
It's
tricky.
difficult. Yeah.
So and I've never had a point where I've had more cars, and the idea of going to one less seems like a sensible. It seems sensible. It seems incredibly sensible. I'd love to have one car.
It sounds very. It feels very difficult though.
Yeah.
Because you've gotten used to this almost luxury, isn't it? It
Yeah,
is a luxury.
it's 100% a luxury.
It's a great luxury, but I think this is the vice that we have. You know, maybe we don't do other things that people enjoy, but we have this great vice that is the car, and we have to satiate it somehow. If that's more cars or changing the same number of cars, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
I think that's fair enough.
And once you've worked out the logistics of keeping however many cars you have, the idea of you then go, okay, well, I could swap this one out for something else.
Yeah.
But just getting rid of it. I think probably what I need to do is sell my GT3 RS and the F40. Just like, boom, gone. And then revisit.
What would you must have some idea that would make you do that though. I mean the old 911 has got to be, it's permanent,
old
right?
911's staying for a long time. I would only replace it with an old
better old 911.
A better old 911.
Yeah.
And at the moment, something like a Singer is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
And I think it would be really cool and I would really enjoy it, but I wouldn't enjoy it 6 times the price of my current car.
Yeah.
And driving a car that's 500 grand or whatever.
Well, I had to double back when I first saw yours. Like originally thinking, oh, is that? Oh no, it's not Singer. It's just an
It's just an old 911.
Yeah.
But
it had that charm immediately.
It does.
You know?
It's a cool, fun little car.
Yeah.
And driving a car that the bumper, someone reverses into the bumper and you can get a new bumper, respray it for 500 quid is very different to someone reverses the bumper and it's like 20 grand.
Yeah.
And you can't get the parts straight away and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like headache wise, I'm happy taking my old 911 on an ice track.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of a bit tough and
you wouldn't really think about it with the other one, would you?
It's all right. A Singer. Oof.
Yeah. You kind of just want it somewhere in this room, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Just
in
looking
the glass
at
box, with a magnifying glass nearby.
I'd like something modern and GT comfy. Whether that would be a manual 991.2 GT3.
Yeah.
I drove James's and I really liked it. And it was interesting driving that back to back with my RS.
Yeah.
It would tick a lot more of the practicality of how I actually use my car's usage. I did think the other day of taking the cage. See if I wonder if you can take the cage out of my GT3 RS.
I wonder if you can.
I don't know why you couldn't.
I couldn't see why not.
Or even if you could just disassemble quite a lot of it. Because then it would open up that space in the back for just chucking stuff in. But
An occasional 2-seat GT3 would be cool, I think. Maybe I'm the only person in the world who thinks that.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice. As a little daily crazy Porsche.
So
someone should do that.
I don't know. Anyway. Onwards. Right. Next question for you. If you could only drive one car for the rest of your life, you're allowed like a £500 banger.
That's a tough one. I think probably I'm going to go with my first reaction, and that was C63S Coupe. I think 205. It just does everything. I think for all the reasons we stated earlier, sound, dynamics, being modern enough, but driving enough like an analog car.
Yeah,
I think that
looks
one.
cool.
Yeah,
sounds good.
I think that's
Sweet.
the one I would sell my Black Series over it potentially. Did I say that just now? I really love that car. I do.
Have you ever considered like Rentecing cars or anything like that?
I have spoken to Rentec actually, but the reason that conversation happened was having driven the Pro at Hockenheim. I was like, why is this so quiet? Is anyone doing something about this?
Yeah.
And then I spoke to Rentec Europe, so whether anything happens there, I don't know. But I haven't considered it till now, only because my brain has always thought stock has got to be good enough, and if it's not, buy another car.
I think that's a really good way of outlook.
Because I think you can end up spending a lot and going through a lot of headache just to get something that should have been right in the first place for you. Because there's enough cars out there for you to find your one.
Yeah. And unless it's something like you've got a car and you want it to be more of a track car, so you like change brake pads and stuff like that. But that's minor.
There's tweaking, isn't there? Like you want a bit more exhaust sound, or you want to change, even aesthetically speaking. You want to change the interior or something, whatever the case may be. That's fine, but to wholesale change things about a car, which a lot of people do, doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they start with a car and try and make it into. It's normally aimed at another car.
Yeah.
They're like, I want my V8 R8 to be a V10 R8, so I'm going to change all of the bodywork to look like a V10, or and that 100% goes all ends of the spectrum. You make a car look more like an M2 or something.
I had this great conversation with Tim's manager, Schmark 150, as he likes to call himself.
Mark.
And he's a lovely guy. He spent 45 minutes. This was originally when the M2 comp came out. And he spent 45 minutes saying how it's not as good as the old M2, etc., etc., etc. And he was disappointed. Then he was like, yeah, I'm going to spend 15 grand on it. I was like, Mark, you just said that all this time we just spent talking about how crap it was. Why are you spending all this money? I'll make it better. It's fine. So, okay.
Yeah.
I can't, my brain doesn't, like, I'd be like, I don't like this car. I'll get another one that'll do the job, or buy an old M2 again or something.
Yeah. His brain is 100%, I'm going to buy this car and modify it like tons to make it how you want it or whatever. And you're like, yeah, but at the end of the day, you've got a really expensive M2 M2 competition that 65, 70 grand. Like what if your apex car? But if you go and drive something else that started at maybe a GT4, for example, or something, you're buying a much better car to start with, a better platform. It's depreciated a bit when you buy it, and it will depreciate a little bit, but it probably not. But your 70 grand, 65 grand M2, it's going to be worth 25 grand in 4 years' time.
I'm on the fence with tuning at the moment. I think the future might change that, but let's see what happens.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, best value car for under 50 grand.
As like a daily or like a do-it-everything car?
Can be anything.
I really don't want to give you the same answer again.
To be honest, it fits in that category.
I think the C63S is one of them, for purely the car you get. Something else that hits the mark. I really like the original M2. I think that ticks so many boxes on
and they're
so
like
many
30
levels.
grand.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have change from that car, and you could buy a little hot hatch or something. Yeah, those two really stand out for me from a driver's perspective. Otherwise, if you're looking for luxury, you could get tons of old Mercs that are absolutely brilliant for that money. But yeah, or to be honest, if we look at the first few generations of Boxster and Cayman as well, value for money, especially if you've driven the 718s. Have you had a chance to drive the 718s yet? They're a bit underwhelming, especially with that very flat engine. I think those types of cars are really going to be sought after at some point.
Yeah, and they're holding value.
Are they already? Are they?
Yeah, they're already like 981, which is the one before.
Yeah,
they hold their value really well. When I sold, occasionally, I don't know whether you find this, I come across cars that I used to own.
Yeah,
and definitely being more active on social media, people reach out.
They do. Yeah,
like when I bought, even weirdly, when I bought my S4, like the day later, someone messaged me and were like, "You bought my S4? Here's the picture of it, like on my drive the day I collected it." And you're like, "Oh, cool.
That's cool.
Where's my boot cover?"
What's your mobile? Yeah.
So I had a 981 Boxster when they first came out. I had an S.
Okay.
And I think the list price on that car was probably 60.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Which was quite high for.
Which was quite high at the time.
Well.
Yeah. And it was the new shape. And I've ended up selling it after 2 years, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe a year and a half. It wasn't very. I think maybe 2 years. And that's when I bought my GT3 RS. And I think I sold it for 45. So that's 5-6 years ago now, something like that.
Yeah.
I saw the same car like a year ago for sale.
Your old one?
My old car for £45,000.
Oh my God.
And I was like, okay, this is not remotely possible, but I could have kept that car and run it for another 5 years.
Yeah. For free.
Is it?
Well,
for no depreciation. Obviously, I got my GT3 RS. I love that car, and actually, I've done very well out of having that car. But
there is a sweet spot somewhere there. I think within that era of cars, there came a sweet spot. I think maybe, I don't know, I'm throwing a figure out there, between 2010 and 2016. There
100%.
was this great sweet spot of awesome cars, and anything in that, or most things in that era, are going to be sought after, I think.
Yeah, and the 987 generation Boxsters and Caymans, so before 981, they feel really analog now. Like, they feel really good.
And
no, the shape doesn't look as cool as the slightly later one.
They sound fantastic,
and
as
they
well.
sound great. They drive great. I was randomly looking at Cayman R's recently.
Yeah,
They're expensive. I thought,
I thought they dropped in value for the longest time.
Yeah, but now they're like 40 something.
Hmm.
I thought they were going to be 20 something.
That's great value for the money.
But because I was thinking, what could I get that would be a good track car?
Yeah.
And I thought, maybe Cayman R. And then I realized that they were like 45 grand. I'm like, no, that's not. I was thinking 20.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. Next question. Most undervalued car at the moment. You look at and go, ooh.
Value for money wise.
Yeah. Should be worth more. Or punches.
I think
I
one
don't think
that's...
we can have C63 Coupe again.
No, it's not. I promise you. I'm really sorry, everyone. I'm a bit obsessed because I've just bought it back and it's the best thing since sliced bread. I think the one that's taken an unnecessarily huge hit, but it's great value for money, is the GTR.
Yeah.
I think pound for pound as just one of the best track cars, both in its dynamics and the way it sounds, the way it looks, that the world has ever seen. It does not deserve to sit at under 100 grand. And for it to sit for under 100 grand is bonkers.
Is that, if you go in, will you get one for under 100 now?
If you push a dealer at the moment, I don't know where they're sitting at, but I know that dealers are buying them in for like 80s. Okay.
Actually, yeah, because I know what Tim sold his for, so they must be.
So do I. So I know the offers that he was getting as well, which were ridiculous. So I think you could get one for sub 100, and the car for the money. My brain, I'm half like, I can't afford it, but can I try and buy my old one back or something? I'm at that stage,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that it didn't deserve it, but it's car manufacturers. Why are you mass producing a car and giving dealers, demo cars of a car that should be only customer order? It's not an E-Class that needs to have demonstrators sitting at dealerships. All that does is, if I want a GTR, either I'm going to go and spec one, or I'm going to find one at about the right spec that I want. If a dealer has pre-spec'd one and it's just sitting there, who's going to want to buy it? Spending that much money, 160 grand new.
Yeah, on a Mercedes.
You're just not going to buy it. You're going to wait. The dealer's going to shit his pants after 4 months, drop the price. That's what's happened. The market on these type of cars crashes because you've built cars as if they're C's or E-Classes.
Yeah.
It's a shame. That is business, and it's not the right way of doing business, I think. Porsche wouldn't do it with GT3. Let's put it that way.
No. But no, they're cool cars. Need to have a go.
Yes,
right.
you do.
Last question. What's the most interesting car to you at the moment? What do you find yourself Googling or looking up or just forefront of your mind?
Right. Toyota Supra.
Ooh.
I find this car fascinating.
It is interesting.
Because it's got all the things I don't like in terms of platform sharing and, bits from other cars, interiors, etc. But it's something I feel the manufacturer has really done right, where you've got your usual bunch of cars, which are Toyota cars. Then you've got something that's so different to all of them in terms of its design, the way it drives, the way it looks. That, to me, is how a performance car should be done. And too many of the manufacturers, even the ones we love, like Porsche and AMG, BMW M, Audi RS, they're probably the most guilty of it, is making everything so same.
Yeah.
That you jump out of one car into another and the interior has all got this, same design language, and the exterior's all got the same design language. Rarely are we ever taken aback by something and saying, oh my God, that's totally different to its sister car.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the Toyota does really well. It just looks like something that doesn't belong in that brand. But because of that, it's immediately cool. And I don't care if it's got a BMW steering wheel or, infotainment system, etc. That fact alone just it speaks to me, and I wish more manufacturers would be a bit more bold, not play the safe game with, oh, that sold well, let's give it the same face, and just stepped out of their comfort zone, because that's when really special things happen. And I think that is a really good example of a car like that. Yeah,
that's quite an interesting way of looking at car manufacturers. And I think the manufacturers that make cheaper cars, or I don't mean cheaper cars, I mean, cars that go down to, let's say, Mercedes, they make an A-Class, which is their small town run around. Audi make an A1, whatever. But they go all the way up. Audi goes up to the R8.
Yeah.
Mercedes goes up to the AMG GT.
Or the
GTR Pro or whatever, What you have is you have these supercars or sports cars that are sitting at the top of a range. And therefore, pretty much, they just extend the range up to the top rather than historically, let's say Ferrari.
Yeah.
You're coming in at a much higher point, and therefore all Ferraris were the same, but they were radically different to what most people are used to. I think the problem I've always found with an R8 is, having had Audis as daily cars, is the interior on the R8 is nice, but it's the same now. It's the same as in all of the other Audis, so it doesn't feel different or special.
If anything, it looks older and kind of last gen now, doesn't it, compared to a lot of the new stuff you're getting in the RS5 and whatnot.
But I don't know how you make it totally different, because it's obviously costs a lot to design a new interior. And if you just make really expensive cars, that's, Pagani only makes one interior, but it's mental.
Yeah. I think it used to happen in the past when we look at kind of what the previous M cars or the previous AMG cars looked like compared to their normal counterparts. There was significant differences. Now you almost feel like there's trim pieces missing from one to the other.
Yeah, that really annoys me.
It can't be that much to have separate bumpers, or
And where are all the arches?
Give me a different steering wheel, like a totally different steering wheel and a different key. It cannot cost that much to do that.
Just reshell a key.
Yeah, reshell it. I mean, Aston have reshelled a Merc key. Merc can reshell their own key.
Yeah.
Give us something to hang our hat on and say, look, I've spent something on a premium product.
Yeah.
And I've got this that's totally different. You haven't got it at the moment. I mean, I reviewed the CLA 35 the other day at AMG. And Sam, you sit in that car, and if I blindfolded you and put you in a CLA 45S, which is another 20, 25, I don't know how much it is, they're identical inside. And that is so wrong.
Yeah, it is.
But that is the way the industry's going.
It is. That was the reason, one of the main reasons why I ended up with an S4, not an RS4.
Yeah.
One, they sort of stopped production on the RS4 for a bit because of the change in legislation. So the prices have sort of been held up.
Doesn't the S4 sound better?
The S4 sounds the same.
Because the RS4 was a bit underwhelming.
They sound basically, it's the same engine.
Same engine. All the more reason then. But this is what's happening,
and
isn't
the
it?
interior is exactly the same. And you're like, well, if you're going to spend another 20 grand on an RS1, yes, those cars, they still have the big arches and stuff. Yeah. But that's it. There's not a lot of difference between those two cars.
There's not a lot for you to hang your hat on, is there?
Yeah, for that amount of money.
Not enough. And I think those cars are a great example. I think the 35s to the 45s in Merc's lineup are a very, very big example where you'll probably just have a lot more fun in the 35s.
And a lot more people will probably just buy the 35 who would have bought the 45.
Yeah, I think so.
I think a lot more buyers now are...
People are getting smarter as well.
They're getting smarter, and they go, well, actually, this is fast.
Yeah.
It's more economical.
Yeah.
It's the same interior. It looks the same pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in just spending more money for some numbers that are completely pointless?
And customization and stuff, just aesthetically speaking, is becoming more common, I think, now in the UK than it's ever been. So, individualizing your S4 or your 35 or your M140i is so much more the thing to do now than it ever was before.
Yeah.
We've never been like the US in that sense, but I think now we're starting to come along the idea that individualizing your car's all right, and that's only going to hurt, I think, these top end so-called cars.
Yeah, and all of the 63s of this world, or the RSs of this world, they've toned down in aesthetics massively over the previous generation. Yeah. Like the old C63 just looks like badass. Yeah. The old RS4, whatever, massive arches. Yeah. Now there's so much less so. So the one that was a huge step was when they brought the M2 out.
The M2 is a great. I was thinking about that when I was talking
That's a really good example of doing it well.
The Toyota, the Supra, is you look at the M2, how it was completely different in its design language. Now you see bits of it across the rest of the cars, right? Yeah. Invariably. But that took a long, long time to happen. When it first came out, it was wow. And it wasn't just BMW fans. I think everyone wanted that car. Yeah. Because of just how, off the beaten path it was.
Yeah, and a cool little car. And when I had mine, the number of people that would just be like, that's a cool car. Yeah. And irrespective of price and whatever. Yeah. And it just doesn't look like the rest of that range at all.
I mean, do you think the original R8 was like that as well?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the original R8 when it came out.
Wow.
I think anyone who, if you mildly like cars, forget a brand, you just wanted that car.
Yeah.
Because
It's a spaceship.
it's incredible. You know, it was designed better than any other mid-engine car at that time. It caught them all sleeping, all those manufacturers. You know, lower price point, amazing looks, linked to Iron Man movie, etc. It's great. It's a great car, but you know, we rarely see that now. It's sad. But I think whoever nails that again, it's not too late for anything.
Yeah.
You know, if a manufacturer nails that type of exciting,
It's very hard.
almost, you know, random kind of way of looking at things, not looking at things in the same way, they're bound to be successful, I think.
Yeah, I think we need to stop going down this make a really fast electric car.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone's that interested.
I don't think so. When I think of electric, what interests me is saving money.
Yeah.
Driving something that is environmentally good and ease of use, if it can do that element. Those things interest me, and they interest me in terms of a daily. I've never once thought, oh, imagine if I had an electric sports car.
No.
Because immediately when you say electric sports car, I've lost 5 or 6 of the things that I love about sports cars.
Yeah. The only thing you have is speed.
Yeah.
And speed is not something that you should derive all your fun from, because you lose your license.
I never derive fun from speed. The way I drive, and it's specific to a lot of AMG customers, to be honest, is we enjoy the sound of the cars. We enjoy the way the steering feels, the way the rear end plays. In modern day AMGs, the way the gearbox is, and it's just plodding along at normal speeds or attacking, you know, some corners in the suburbs, in more suburban areas, but at low speeds.
Yeah.
Never once have I come away from an autobahn run in Germany thinking, "Oh, this is why I bought the car." It's really not.
No.
And speed, I think, has got absolutely nothing to do with the equation of loving how a car drives. It never has, and I don't think it ever will.
It's an experience.
Yeah.
Like I would love to own a 720S for a couple of months in the summer.
Yeah.
One, because I just kind of want to experience that McLaren suspension system and
it's very clever.
usability with just crazy batshit fast.
Mm.
But it's not the thing that I would enjoy cruising around. Like 95% of my driving, pretty much all my driving, is not about going fast. It's about enjoying driving.
Yeah, that's right.
And you have to have
speed
sound.
doesn't come into that.
You have to have sound.
You have to have sound. It's got to be done. I think a manufacturer who cracks the element of adding some kind of mechanical element to the sound will, you know, that they will crack the EV side of things. But again, I don't think, as we said before, we're kind of repeating ourselves. EV alone is not the way to go.
No.
We got to stop attacking the sound regulation side of things, because it's really going to kill the whole market. And I think all these manufacturers will eventually will have an Apple car, which will be better than all the other cars.
Yeah.
And bye, you know, VAR Group,
Just
Daimler,
gone.
and all, they'll vanish, because these cars will. And that's the other problem. We were talking about disposing of old cars. Now, if I can use your iPad as an example, when you have, like, this is an older iPad, and you get the new one come out, immediately this one is that much less desirable.
Yeah.
The problem with EVs, it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
You're not going to be looking at, you know,
They only get worse.
my dad's got an old W124 E-Class 300D. It does everything that my car today would do if I bought a new E-Class.
Yeah.
Everything it does, the basics are there. When you look at a new EV versus an EV from today, it's like that car is not going to do what this car does.
There's never going to be a classic EV market.
I mean,
there may be, but I highly doubt
a
it.
Taycan today does 200, 250 miles. Okay, the Taycan of the future, if there is one, assuming EVs survive, will do 700 miles.
Yeah.
Who's going to buy an original Taycan?
No.
No
And by
one.
then, your original one will do 100 miles.
Yeah, because the battery will cost 40 grand to replace. So they're going to become consumables. I wouldn't be surprised, should they survive, that it becomes like a contract phone type nonsense.
Yeah.
That you're almost have it 1 year, give it back, and it gets recycled or something.
Yeah, or they swap the batteries or whatever.
Well, what is the effect of the environment on that? I don't know. You know, you'll need.
And
an
then
expert
also
for
is that point of you get to almost like, is it worth owning a car, or
Yeah.
do you just share it with a
Yeah.
bunch of other people?
Yeah, which might end up happening as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Let's not end on a
Let's
depressing
not
note.
end on a
Let's not do
depressing
that.
note.
That's bad.
Well, it's all right. I'm going to come round to your house. We're going to bring the GT3 RS.
Do that.
And going to have a go in the GTR
have
Pro.
Have a go in the GTR Pro and in the C63S Coupe, actually. Yeah. I need you just to experience that, just going to get a coffee and coming back. That's all I want you to do. And if you haven't got a smile by the end of it, I'll change my name to Mr. Singer or something.
Well, let's do it. Well, thanks very much for coming on.
Absolute pleasure.
It's been good.
I was waiting for your message, I must say. I did play it cool when you messaged me, but I have been listening to the podcast. When the message came up saying, "Oh, do you want to be?" I was like, "Yeah, I could make some time for you." So, no, it's been an absolute pleasure. Seriously, thank you for inviting me, and maybe I'll come back one day for another topic.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have a good chat.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Sam.